What's up? Hey guys, and welcome to the Find Your Flow podcast. My name is Mike Graham, and I'm your guide and host as we embark on this incredible adventure together. I am so excited about this podcast. I'm so excited to share some of the stories and some of the episodes, even some of the ones that we've got recorded. If you don't know what this podcast is about, it's about having conversations with ordinary people who are living extraordinary lives. Now, if you might have noticed already, it's just myself on the couch. So this is a bit of a surprise episode and a slightly different format from what we're going to be doing. The first thing is I'm going to be releasing one of these every Sunday for y'all, and the idea is really to give you guys something to flow into the week, like a Sunday flow to just help get your mind ready to have an amazing week. And really what I wanted to kind of talk about on this episode is just to give you a little bit of my motivation for starting this podcast, and perhaps the reason why you as a listener in the audience should engage and tune in. For me, I think one thing I've come to realize in the last very recent period of my life was this concept of flowing. And I'm going to kind of share a little bit about my story in a bit, and I'll share what I think flow is and kind of what I feel it takes to maintain flow in life and all these kind of amazing concepts. But I feel that when we think about the concept of flowing, the concept of just flowing through life, for me, it's something that's happened very, very recently. Almost stumbled into it by accident or by force, I'm not sure. I guess I'll let you guys decide as I tell you my story, and through the podcast that you'll see, the episodes you'll see in the future, I guess my story will become more apparent as well. But what I've come to realize is that by me learning to live my life in a state of flow, what that has enabled me to do is to live a life that's so much richer, so much more fulfilled, so much more amazing in every department. Now, this doesn't mean that there isn't struggle, this doesn't mean there isn't pain or anything like that, and challenges and obstacles, absolutely. But the positives massively outweigh all of that. So, and what I've realized is that a lot of people sometimes look at my life and think, wow, you live this extraordinary life, which for me has become a very normal way of living. It's become a very normal life for me, but I've worked very hard to create it. And what I've noticed is that within my network professionally and with my friends, and when I travel and when I meet people at networking events and just events, I know some amazing people, some ordinary guys and girls like me and you who are just doing some extraordinary things in their lives. And to me, I found having conversations with them around dinner, around lunch, around breakfast, at the beach, at the park, I found having these conversations so incredible, such an incredible part of life recently that I really wanted to start sharing these stories. And I guess for you as an audience, the concept that I found really interesting actually is looking at different people's perspectives and looking at different people and seeing the possibilities in life. You know, a lot of these stories that we'll share in these episodes, really they are ordinary guys and girls who somehow have thought about things slightly different than the norm and have somehow flowed into a perfect state, into their dream life. And that, I think that is incredible. So for you as an audience, I'd hope that this becomes a library almost, where you could dig in and find your flow and discover how to go about that and, you know, become passionate enough to chase it and then be brave enough to do it and all that kind of amazing stuff that you'll need for the adventure. But I really hope that this inspires at least one of you, you know, I really hope it inspires someone to really pursue that life of flow and really chase it and make it a reality, make the dream the reality. And so, well, join me for a cup of tea, why don't you? This is something that I've loved doing recently, just having a nice cup of tea at night. You know you're over 30 when you're doing that. So, okay, let me tell you my story. So, my name is Mike. As you know, my name is Mike Graham. I'm originally from Brazil, born and bred, Rio de Janeiro. Olá, tudo bom? So born in Brazil, my mum is Brazilian, my father is British, English, so I have a British passport. My father was in the military, so we left Brazil when I was quite young, when I was 12. We moved all over the world, lived in Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, went to boarding school eventually in the UK, and I started running my first business, which was a door-to-door sales company, when I was 17, 18 in the UK. Did very, very well at that. Kind of moved on from that when I was 22, 23, and then started my own consultancy business. And at that age, I was helping businesses, other businesses with their sales. So I had a big background in sales and business development, and I was helping other businesses do that. And from there, I kind of became an entrepreneur, got involved in many different businesses, many different projects, still living that life. And on the side, I'm very passionate about sports, used to be very big into futebol, of course, being Brazilian, played a lot of rugby, did a lot of triathlon, endurance sports, so ran a few Ironmans, did many marathons, a lot of half marathons, cycled with some friends from London to Paris, raised some money for charity for that. And so did my endurance life for I think 5 years, and now my passion and my obsession is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So os to anybody that trains Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. There will be a lot of talking of Jiu-Jitsu, of course, throughout this podcast. But I think one thing that for me, when I look at my life, my lifestyle, for those of you who don't know me, my lifestyle is very much about I work hard, I enjoy my work, I enjoy the stuff I do with my clients, and I travel a lot. I love to travel, so I live this lifestyle that I can travel a lot. I live in Spain in a beautiful apartment, and I'm just very, very very lucky, very fortunate, because I worked very hard to live this life, but it flowed in a certain way. And I feel that in the last year, what's really happened is I've really started to connect how that flow happens, what it means for me to flow. So let me talk about that, because, I think that's kind of where we should transition to naturally. So for me, the concept of having a life that flows doesn't mean that your life is just easy and, things just happen. It means that whatever it is that you're doing, however you're living your life, right? Whatever lifestyle you choose to live, you feel empowered by that. And what I mean by that, empowered, is a feeling that this is where you feel you need to be. It's where you feel you belong. It's where you feel that right now this feels right, And I think we all have that feeling. I know in my life I've had the feeling where, this just doesn't feel right, what I'm doing, whatever it is, maybe where you're living, maybe the relationship you're in, maybe the work you do, whatever it is, there's something off. I feel that when you're flowing in life, and this is again something very recent that I've stumbled into, everything just feels like you belong in that environment. Your relationship feels like you belong. Your work feels like you belong. Your lifestyle feels like it belongs to you, and you belong to that. And it's a tricky one, because I think nowadays it's very much glamorized. Be an entrepreneur, do this, do that. And yes, it's fantastic, but it has its cons as well, right? Let's be honest about that. It's not all rainbows and butterflies. So, there's so many different lifestyles that are, I think, very, very ordinary, but when done in a slightly different way, become extraordinary. And that's something that I want to kind of share throughout the stories that we're going to tell through this podcast. I think that, how does one get into flow? How did I get into flow, for example? For me, I notice in my life personally, it's always a big event, something, it could be a big breakup. That was one of the things that drove me into doing Ironman training. It could be trying to reconnect with something. For me, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was a big pivoting point that got me into flow. In fact, this podcast is actually named from the concept in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that they have about flowing, right? So when you fight a lot of people, I think this is actually a beautiful way to explain flow and how to get into it. And for me personally, how it happened. in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I told you there was going to be some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, for those who don't know, is a martial art, a Brazilian martial arts, and it's very much about grappling. It's on the floor a lot. Google it, it's beautiful. If you haven't trained it, sign up because it's a really, really fun and great time. So Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, for me, was a reconnection with my origins, right? I'd left Brazil when I was a kid, hadn't had much connection to Brazil. And so when I moved from, I lived in London for 10 years, built my business in London. So when I moved to Spain, right, which is where I live now, when I moved to Spain, I had the opportunity to live a very different lifestyle to what I lived in London, right? And that was a big reason for me to move. That was a huge thing for me deciding my flow. Where do I want to live? For me, I decided a big thing that's very important for me is I want to live by the beach. I want to live near nature. I want to live in a city that's international. I want to live in a place that has great weather. I want to live in a place that's fairly cheap, and affordable. I want to live somewhere that has culture. And so for me, Spain had a lot of that. And so when I moved to Spain, because the lifestyle was calmer, because it was, a lower cost of living, because of a lot of things, I found I had a lot more free time. And so I wanted to reconnect with, and sports for me is such a big thing. I wanted to reconnect with my Brazilian roots, and so Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And for me, it's been an amazing journey. And they have this concept where when you start fighting, a lot of people, me included, a lot of people are very tense, right? When you train Jiu-Jitsu, you always do a bit of grappling. You always do a bit of, not fighting. It is fighting. Yeah, it is fighting, but it's not, full on 100% trying to hurt each other. Of course, you're looking after your training partner, but you are fighting someone. And when you do that for the first time, the first few times, a lot of people are very tense, me included. You kind of go in there with like a wrecking bull, you feel like you're a taureau or something, like a bear. And you just get your ass handed to you. You just get beaten up left, right, and center, But after a while, you start to learn the technique. You start to learn the language. You start to see the patterns. You start to learn skill. And all of a sudden, your attitudes towards the game changes. And there's this concept of flow, which is when two partners are sparring or they're fighting, but they're not really fighting. They're just moving through the mechanics. They're flowing, right? And I feel that that's a beautiful description on life. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get, swept up and landed on your back, for example, but it means that you're comfortable there and you can flow your way through. For example, one thing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has taught me massively is how to handle pressure, right? In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you spend a lot of time handling pressure, especially in the beginning, someone's squashing you. And for me, that was horrible in the beginning. You get some guy's hairy chest on your face and you're just like, get out of here, But after a while, you become comfortable and you learn the movements. And actually, I've learned that transitioned into my everyday life. For example, with my work, with my relationships, even with my patience with myself sometimes, right? So I feel that is kind of what I mean by state of flow. It's a state where you feel that you belong. You're very comfortable there. I think for me, like I said, a few things that are very, very important to have flow are things like where you live, being brave enough to decide where you live and doing that. I think if you don't like where you live, change it, because we live in a world right now where you can live anywhere. You can, as long as you can work remote, you can live anywhere. That obviously tags me to my second thing, which is I think, I don't think, I'm not going to say go and be an entrepreneur, but I think whatever it is that you want to live, the lifestyle you want to have, make sure that your vocation, your work matches that, right? For me, being an entrepreneur is fantastic and I love it, but it doesn't mean that it's the right thing for everybody, right? But whatever your life that you want to live, where you want to live, because I think where you live impacts your flow and you so much. So pick where you live, really get very good at in terms of like the concept of your work so that your work matches where you want to live, right? And then I think after that, have kind of, for me, it's super, super important that you've probably picked up on the pattern here, that I love my sports, right? I love my sports. I did, like I said, I did an Ironman. I kind of got into the triathlon the triathlon sport. I had a huge breakup in my mid 20s. It was very, very bad. And it kind of led me down a pursuit of asking a lot of personal questions like, who am I? What do I want from life? What makes me happy? Etc., right? And triathlon and sport enabled me to do that. And I think that sport has that beauty of being very honest with you. Whatever sport you do, right? Whether it's running, swimming, cycling, triathlon, whether it's jiu-jitsu, whether it's football, whether it's whatever sport you do, could be an individual sport. I think sport has that beauty of just being very honest with yourself in terms of where you're at and where you want to get to and how you're going to get there. And sport might not be the only vehicle because it's a form of expression. It's a form of expressing yourself, tongue-tied, a form of expressing yourself, right? So I think whatever it is, I have a friend, for example, she lives an amazing life, extraordinary life, ordinary girl, extraordinary life. And she finds herself through art. She does a lot of painting, and she's incredible artist, right? But for her, that is kind of one of her grounding pillars, I think, in life. And for me, sport is the thing that enables me to discover more of myself. And I think that that's very, very important, right? And then I think, for me, I think the last thing really is, and you will see this, I don't want to talk too much about this, but you will see this throughout the first few episodes because of my work, because of my sport, because of my traveling lifestyle. When I mean traveling lifestyle, I'll give you an example. The next, the lineup, for example, last year in December, I was in Amsterdam 1 week. I then went to Budapest to see my friends, and they're going to be on this episode because they live an incredible lifestyle. I then went to Barcelona to see my other friend, again, who's going to be on this podcast, this dude lives an incredible lifestyle in Spain as well. I then went to Granada, and then I went back to Barcelona for New Year's. That was in 1 month, right? The next few months, if I tell you my lineup from now to the next few months, it's pretty jacked. So yeah, I love traveling. I just love doing it. I'm not saying everybody needs to like that, but I'm saying have your passions in life, have the things that kind of, get you excited, turn you on, make you see the glow of life, because I think that is so beautiful. So those for me are some of the key things, and I think together with that, what you guys will see through this podcast, through these stories, is some of the people that I like to have in my network. And I think why that's important is because you choose the people in your network, right? There's that very famous phrase, you don't choose your family, but you choose your friends. And I think that in life, that's so important to choose the people that you connect yourself with. How do we value people? Is it, just on their profession, or do we value them by the value of them as a person? Do they show love? Do they show compassion? Are they kind? Are they, do they look after others? Or whatever it is that we, not judge, but you understand what I mean, the people you want in your circle. And if I'm honest, the first few podcasts, I'm so excited because those are some of the closest people in my personal and my professional network. And they're going to share some of the way they live their stories. And it's just super cool. It's just extraordinary. So let me see where we're at. Okay, and I think, look, the last thing I kind of want to wrap up on is when you fall out of flow. Because let's be honest, we fall out of flow all the time. Let's say you have a big breakup from a relationship and you fall out of flow. Let's say you get fired from your job and you fall out of flow. Let's say you, someone close to you, touch wood that doesn't happen, but someone close to you passes away. Whatever it is, life has a way of just sometimes, boom, truck coming in and knocks you off your feet. So we fall out of flow. And I think for me personally, one of the things I've learned in the last year or so when it comes to reflowing is really the concept of being kind with yourself and giving yourself the time to go through the process of that flow, right? There are different flows. I think when we think of flow, we always think of it being a great flow, right? It's always going to be a good time. Sometimes in life, the flow won't be good. Sometimes it's not that way. That's not the path right then and there, I think. But I think what it does is it builds you for the future. And it's all about your perspective and how you look at things. I think when it comes to regaining your flow, a lot of times there's a reason you're out of flow. Try and tune into that reason. Try and be calm. Try and be patient with yourself. Try and listen to maybe your body or your mind or your spirit or whatever it is that you believe in, and try to connect with why it is that you are out of flow. And a lot of times we know the answers. Deep down, we know the answers. It could be, a change of job. It could be a change of living. It could be a change of situation. It could be something. But connecting with that is very powerful because it enables you to move forward from a place of truth and enables you to move forward and flow in the best way that you can. So, being out of flow is not bad. I think getting back on flow, if you don't do that, that is obviously not great, right? So look, I guess the final thing that I just want to wrap up on, I don't want this to be a whole monologue about Michael Graham and how amazing he is and all that. I just think that, like I said, the thing that inspired me to do this podcast was so many people constantly say to me, wow, you live this incredible lifestyle, I remember, I'll give you an example. Last year, I was running a training session for a client. I was in Morocco, and a camel walked behind, on the screen. And the client goes, Mike, where are you? And I was like, oh, don't worry. I'm in Morocco in a digital nomad camp. And, and it's totally cool. And I think that that's a really beautiful thing, right? I feel very blessed to live this lifestyle. And so because I had so many people say that kind of stuff to me, what happened was I would talk to them about their lifestyle and I would connect some incredible things. Some of our first few podcasts, it's going to be, some of these are close friends of mine as well. One of them, she's a girl who, she used to be an accountant. I helped her grow her accountancy business at the very start. And she sold that business. I mean, I don't want to tell the whole story, but long story short, she now works as a professional stunt woman in Hollywood movies. How extraordinary is that, right? One of my other friends, she's a blue belt jiu-jitsu and a competitor. She competes and wins her tournaments. She's just an incredible woman, and her story is very, very unique. And then, one of the other ones is a lady who's a personal trainer, right, to celebrities, but also she does a huge impact in her community in London. And yeah, some other such amazing stories. And I really think that, the goal that I have for you guys from this podcast is to kind of find the best version of yourself, right? Whatever that might mean, and then live that life, because I think that is one of the most beautiful things we can pursue, the pursuit of self-discovery, the pursuit of who we really are, what makes us happy, what kind of life we want to live. And once we start to connect the dots, whatever that might be, and however we do that, and I think one of the best ways sometimes to do that, I know in my life, I always look at people and go, if they have something that I have, if they have a lifestyle, if they have, I don't know, the wealth, if they have the family life, whatever they might have that I might have, I always think, how do they do it? Because if they can do it, I can probably do it too, right? And that's the concept here. The concept here is by sharing these stories, I hope it inspires you guys as an audience to look at things and go, you know what? If this guy or this girl is doing it, I can do it too. So guys, listen, thank you so much for watching the first episode on this show. And for now, please go find your flow. See you on the next episode.